Hey guys, Bushcraft412. Second video in my bugging out series about bugging out the right way. Our first video, which I'm going to put a link to, is about shelter. Quick rehash. You know, you can go weeks without food, days without water, but if the elements get to you, they can kill you in a matter of hours. And that being the cold or the warm. So, and pretty much all of us in America have one or the other as a problem. There's no place that moderate in America where you don't have either heat or cold as an issue that can possibly kill you. So, moving on. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and that's okay, guys. I believe your second biggest need for bugging out is sleep. I hear it now. No, you're wrong, Bushcraft412. It's water. Okay. Very, very valid response is that it is water. But I really kind of believe when it comes down to this, hopefully your bug out location has or is near water, number one. And number two, hopefully you've brought at least some water with you. Even if it's just one bottle of water, hopefully you have some water in your bug out kit. You know, ideally you want a day or two's water. But, you know, when you're bugging out, things happen. You don't know where you're going to end up. Your intention may be to end up at place B. You don't make it, you end up having to go to the wilderness, or place B isn't safe, you have to go to place C. You know, bugging out is going to be a horrible thing. You're never going to know, you know, your plans may not work out as you plan. So hopefully you do have a couple days worth of water with you, or are near water at your bug out location. So I feel like sleep is a little more important than water because of that. Now, granted, guys, like I said, you know, if you do live in a warm, hot, dry environment in the middle of summer, water is probably your first priority because water can kill you. You know, that dehydration may kill you in a couple of hours. Heat stroke may kill you in a couple of hours. So, of course, you know, you do have to readjust accordingly based on the environment you're in. But up here in New York, water is everywhere, so it's not one of my priorities. However, sleep is. If you don't sleep, you're not going to think straight, you're not going to be able to make good decisions, and you're not going to be comfortable. Now, I remember the days of being, you know, an 18-year-old kid being able to go 40, 50 hours without sleep. Those days are long gone. After about 30 hours, I'm pretty cranky, I'm pretty miserable, and I'm falling asleep. In a bug-out situation where you may be driving for extended periods of time or hiking for extended periods of time, you're going to need sleep to replenish your stores. And so once your shelter is taken care of, you know, and granted, guys, you may be in the wilderness, you could be at a rescue shelter, you could be at a friend's house, you could be, you know, in an urban area, hiding in an abandoned warehouse, you could be anywhere. You need sleeping gear. You know, just look, for example, a lot of people don't think about sleeping gear, they ignore it. Say you are bugging out and your bug out plan falls to hell and you end up having to crash in an abandoned warehouse. You don't have any sleeping supplies. You're just going to lay on the cold concrete and sleep? No, it's not realistic. If you end up in the wilderness, you're gonna handcraft a shelter out of brush and sleep comfortably during the night? No, it's, you know, those are YouTube fakers who show you that stuff, them sleeping comfortably at night in these handmade shelters that are just perfect. You know, that's a lot of bullshit for anyone who's made a real bush shelter. You know, it's not a comfortable way to sleep at all, especially if you don't have gear with you. It's surviving, but it's not, you know, a way you can go on like that for an extended period of time. I highly recommend with your bug out gear that you have a couple of things. And guess what, guys? These might not fit in your bug out bag. You know, our little tactical cool bug out bags that we have generally aren't very big. And they're not made to carry big bulky gear, so you may have to rethink your strategy a little bit. I really think you need, show them on frame here, something to sleep on, like a pad. That here's an inflatable pad. It folds down quite small. I can actually get it down pretty small, so I can fit that in the back of a backpack very easily. And that one's inflatable. You don't have to use inflatable. You could use just a piece of foam. Cut a piece of foam to the size of your back and put it in there. You don't even need it that big. You can actually, because when you sleep on a hard surface like concrete, you actually only have maybe 2 or 3 contact points on your whole body on the ground, depending on how you sleep. So one thing you can always do is to lay down on the ground and see where your contact points are and just cut a couple squares of foam to cover those contact points, because that's all you really need to insulate from the ground. I highly, highly recommend wool blankets. You should have a couple of these in the trunk of your car. They're great for emergencies, even, whatever, you get into a car accident, your car goes off the road in a snowstorm. It's really a smart idea to have a couple of wool blankets in your car, just as general everyday emergency gear. But as a bug out piece of equipment, it's a hell of a piece of gear. Not only is it a blanket, something you can sleep with and sleep on, they have great insulating properties even when they're wet. You can turn them into a jacket. You can turn them into, a bunch of different things. You can just Google wool blanket tricks or wool blanket uses, and there's a million different things you can do to turn that wool blanket into a multi-use piece of gear. Another big thing to have is dry clothing. I did the video the other day on vacuum sealing clothing. Very smart idea to have a dry set of clothing in your bug out bag. You're not going to bug out in great sunny beautiful weather. There more than likely may be a natural disaster going on. If you get your bug out clothes wet, your boots wet, your shoes wet, all that stuff wet, it's a great idea to have a nice dry pair of clothes to slip into at the end of the night. So number one, you're not getting trench foot and you're not getting sores on your body from being wet. If you are wet and damp and you walk around and you're working hard, you can get chafing and sores and things like that, and they can take you down quick. It's really important to have a nice dry pair of clothes to sleep in. And I highly recommend, if you only have 2 sets of clothes, do the whole backpacker thing. Have one pair that you sleep in and one pair that you work and travel in. That way you always have one nice, clean, dry set of clothing at night that you put on literally right when you go to bed. Another big luxury item is a sleeping bag. There are some really good backpacking sleeping bags out there that are pretty small and pretty compact, particularly the down stuff. They get expensive, but if you're on a budget, this one here, this is a Eureka 30-degree sleeping bag. It was probably about $50, and it fits pretty well in any backpack. It's a little bulky, but to be honest, if I'm bugging out, I'm hopefully starting out in my car. Who knows where I could end up. I may not make it to my bug out location. I'd likely put 2 or 3 sleeping bags and 2 or 3 tents in my car so that I had them if I needed them. If I didn't need them, I could trade them or give them away. And when it comes to that point where, say, if I do have to bug out in the wilderness, if my sleeping bag will not fit in my bag, I'm carrying this son of a bitch. Because I tell you, going without sleep will not be productive, and going without sleep long term will be very detrimental to your health and your well-being. And literally, if you go a couple days without sleep, your body will start to shut down. And if it shuts down, you're not going to be able to do those things you need to do to survive. So being able to sleep and sleep comfortably, very important. And part of that is adjusting for your environment, making sure if you are in a cold climate that you are able to stay warm, or that if you're in a warm climate, you're able to stay cool. You may be in the desert, you may be forced to travel at night and sleep by day. So you're going to need gear that's going to keep the sun off you and let you sleep in a desert environment. Or if there's a lot of bugs, if you live, in an area that's heavy with the bugs, you may want to bring a mosquito net. You're not going to sleep good if mosquitoes and bugs are pawing all over you. And that goes for anywhere, even if you're indoors. You're bugged out at a shelter. There's nothing to say. You get a shelter like that, 100-degree day, windows get open, the bugs come swarming in, everyone's stinky, smelly, blech, having a bug net may be something that makes the difference between you being up all night swatting bugs versus you sleeping a nice sound night of sleep. And I know I've rattled on a lot here, guys, but like I said, shelter is very important. You can die of the elements in hours. And you can also die of dehydration in hours, so water is very, very, very important. But if water is plentifully available in your area, I highly recommend that you look at sleep as your next thing, because it's very important to be able to rest. Now, with that sleeping bag and that pad, I can sleep comfortably down to freezing temperatures. Big deal, I can sleep and sleep comfortably with, that is literally probably 3.5 pounds of gear. I would substitute half of the fancy flashlights and tactical gear that people put in their dumbass bug out bags for a sleeping bag. In fact, if anything, the first things I would grab would be tent, sleeping bag, and ground pad, because I know I have a safe, dry place to sleep every night. Whether that's indoors, outdoors, wherever, I like to have that covered, because there's nothing worse than spending 3 or 4 hours to make a brush shelter just to find out that it leaks like a son of a bitch and you get wet all night anyway. Common sense. Don't, I watch bug out bag videos kind of to prepare for this, and the garbage people bring and put in them. Binoculars. Are you kidding me? People have binoculars in their bug out bag, but they have no shelter, no blankets, nothing. Are you kidding me? Binoculars. Binoculars will not save one bit of your life. You need to look at your bug out bag and get all the stuff out of your head that you see in these videos and think, what are my needs? What do I need to survive? And you don't need paracord to survive. You don't need all these things to survive. You need a shelter. You need a warm place or a dry place to sleep at night. You need water. You need food. Forget about that gear. That is people looking to get you to watch their videos, showing nice, great, shiny, cool gear. Think about it, and I highly recommend, guys, take a look at your area, where you live, and your environment. Plan ahead. What temperatures do you live in a place that never gets below 60 degrees? Okay, you're going to have a different bug out bag than me. Adjust accordingly to your environment. If you're in a rainforest, you're obviously going to want more rain gear or a tent that can, handle rain a little better than your average tent. If you are in an environment that's very cold, you may want to invest in a 4 seasons tent or a better sleeping bag. It's all up to your environment. Being attuned to your environment and being ready for anything. I know I'm beating a dead horse. I'm rambling on here horrible, but like I said, your bug out plan may not always work. You could want to go to place A, end up at place B. You could be at a shelter. You could be at a friend's house. You could be in the wilderness. You could be anywhere. So plan accordingly so that your kit is universal and not just set up for your bug out location. You want to make sure if you are at a shelter, you're in an urban area, you're sleeping in an abandoned warehouse or an office building or even your office and your cubicle, that you've got things in your car and in your bug out bag that will help you sleep and be protected no matter where you end up. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry I rambled on so long with this one, but really important stuff, and hopefully I will get the next video out this weekend.